mean, I think I told you I played poker with Doe, right?
No.
Like once. I haven't told it to Doe. No, I sunburned my hands. I've never sunburned my hands before, but I was just like typing away today, like kind of working, and then I was like, gosh, why do my hands feel so weird? And then I was like, you know what? I went outside today. I surfed this morning. I didn't put any sunscreen. I've never put sunscreen on the back of my hands, but
Were,
apparently it's a thing in Puerto Rico.
were only your hands in the sun when you were working?
No, I went surfing. And so I put sunscreen on my arms, but I just didn't think to put any
Uh,
sunscreen on the back of my hands. Yeah. I
is the surf
also,
good there?
oh, it's so good. It's really, really
Really?
good. Yeah, they kind of say it's like a Hawaii of the Atlantic.
Okay.
Like it's really good surf. That's a big reason for me moving out here.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It's 85-degree water, 85-degree
I'm
weather outside.
I heard that you're good at, or you're like kind of good at surfing. You're you're not as good as Tommy at Sci Options. He said he's better than you, but
We've never gone, and I think it's like a little bit of like I don't think we ever will go. But yeah, I'd be curious to see. I feel like Tommy's intense. Like I feel
yeah.
like he's like really intense at surfing.
Yeah. No, actually what Tommy said was he was like, Spencer's really good at surfing. He's like, because I told him, I was like, I'm not good at surfing. I'm better at mountain sports. I'm more like mountains, not beach kind of guy. And he was like,
Yeah.
he's like, okay, so you're good at mountain sports. Spencer's good at like really good at surfing. He's like, I'm like okay at both. He's like, I'm just like
he's
right in the middle.
he's decent at snowboarding. I went snowboarding with him. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good at snowboarding. Yeah, he kind of humble about it, but I was like, I could snowboard. I hadn't done it in like 5 years, and I was like, terrible. We were at Snowbird in Salt Lake City, and it was like just really intense moguls, and it
Yeah.
was like there wasn't much snow. It was pretty icy, and I remember at one point just sliding down the mountain on my stomach, like
Oh,
looking at the snow, like yeah, just like belly dragging down the front of the moguls. It's just like
that's embarrassing.
super painful.
Oh
Yeah, it was
man.
really embarrassing. And then I just like quickly got up at the end, like shook it off, like nobody saw it. Um, yeah, I think probably the most interesting thing of my day though today was last night. So I have a couple of Bitcoin puts
Uh-huh.
through some of these vaults through Sci Finance, and I was like, okay, I need to hedge. Like Bitcoin is not looking good here. Yesterday, what was the price yesterday? It was like
Mhm.
27,000, somewhere around there. And the strike on the put is 24,500. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna, set an alarm for when Bitcoin drops below the strike. I'll go, put on a perp. And I actually had this like alert system that would call you. And so I got a call at 4:30 a.m. this morning. Woke up, like rolled out of bed, went over to my desk, logged onto my computer, put a perp on at like the exact strike price, which was awesome. I didn't even have to do a limit order, just market order. That's how quick I got up.
Uh,
And ended up ended up just trading in and out of this perp for like an hour and a half. Um, and the reason being is like it's a cash secured put.
yeah.
So it's not like delta neutral. And yeah, that's how I started my morning. I was like,
Wait, that's a good morning. So you did
I
that,
just,
then you went surfing and you sunburnt your hands, and then you got some work done.
yeah, no,
That
it's been a
sounds
really good day.
that sounds like a good day.
I mean, I'm having so much fun. I think that sounds terrible, but with all the macro events taking place, like, I just kind of feel like I have a front row seat to it. I feel like everyone
Yeah.
in crypto has a front row seat to this like rapidly changing environment.
Mhm.
I did like a little bit of like research over the weekend. I don't know, have you seen the Stanley Druckenmiller video from Soma yet?
Yeah, I did. I
Did you
think I
see
put
that?
that. Yeah, did I put that thread in our shared chat?
Maybe. I really
Okay.
liked it. I thought it
Yeah,
was good.
he
But
had some good points, and I was talking with my dad about it on the weekend actually.
me too.
but but yeah, I mean, I liked his point. To sum it up, he basically said that like for a certain portion or certain allocation of your portfolio, it should kind of like go between Bitcoin and gold. And in bear markets, gold will hold up better. This was his thought anyway. So gold will hold up a little better in bear markets, and Bitcoin will outperform in bull markets. So
Yep.
trading in and out of gold and Bitcoin might be the play. I was too stupid to do that on this one. I just held my Bitcoin.
Yeah,
But I've had
me
Bitcoin
too.
since, yeah, I had a call earlier this morning and I was telling him, I've had Bitcoin since like, 2014, 2017-ish in there. So
Wow.
it just kind of sits in a hot wallet and I don't ever think about that stuff.
A hot wallet.
Sorry, cold wallet. Yeah, yeah, sorry. So it sits there and I just don't think about that stuff. But other than that, like we talked about in the last podcast, mostly in stables. So
Yeah.
it's a good place to be. You're not as stressed as when all this is going down. You're just kind of watching it happen. So it's a lot less
It's kind of
stressful.
weird.
Yeah, it's a
You
little
feel
weird.
like,
You're watching it from the outside.
yeah, it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you feel kind of numb
so
to it.
so that book, I don't know if you've ever read The Psychology of Money,
Yep,
but
I have it.
you should read it. It's really good. I did an article and a thread on it not too long ago, and I think it resonated with people because on crypto Twitter, you get so wrapped up in the making money and making every last cent and not missing out on anything. But in the book, he talks about what are we really optimizing for here? Are we optimizing for every last cent, or are we optimizing for happiness?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're optimizing for happiness, then like you have to at some point de-risk, de-lever, and be able to sleep at night, right? And it's definitely, and
Yeah.
that's why I stopped trading short term, like day trading and that type of thing, is because I would just wake up every couple hours, look at the price, look at my stops and stuff like that, and it's just like it's just not a healthy lifestyle, I don't think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, that was me this morning at 4:30 a.m. when I had like 8 trades, and I was like trading in and out of this perp.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what I really liked about Druckenmiller's piece was he was like, I have 4 great ideas a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's the way to go. Like, I
That's the way
really
to
wish
go.
I just had high conviction 4 times a year,
Yep.
put on a sizable trade. Yeah, I'm sure it's very painful. I mean, some of the stories when he was down, or he could put a $200 million position and it ended up being an $800 million short that he had to cover. And yeah.
That's wild. So actually, that's a great segue into everyone who's hurting right now, talking about a couple firms, mainly Celsius, which is I think what we want to talk about today, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I know of Celsius, or what's going on with Celsius so far. And like I said, I don't I haven't dug too deep into it, so maybe you can expand on it, or just stop me whenever you have something. But from what I understand, Celsius has lost a lot of money. They've lost a lot of capital through a few different things. One, I think they've been in. They lost some money to a hack. I think they were in the Luna UST thing, so they obviously lost a lot of money there. And then I think that they were. A lot of their position is locked up in ETH validators, correct? Through
Yep.
is
Yep.
it? I don't know how
The
to pronounce
beacon
this.
chain.
the beacon chain, yeah. But were they using Lido?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How
I
do you pronounce that?
rotate each time too. I think
Yeah.
it's I've heard Lido.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
I'll just use Lido.
Lido.
Lido. Yeah. So they did have like a bunch of, and I'm just gonna call it Steve, STETH, staked ETH. I'll just call it
Yep.
Steve. Um,
Yeah.
so they had a bunch of that. And then obviously like when all these things crashed, when DeFi crashed, they took a massive hit, and they had to crystallize some losses somehow because they needed the capital, right? So the way that they raised capital, I believe, and this was really interesting, was they sold a lot of stETH to either FTX or Alameda at a discount, like probably a pretty heavy discount. So once they did that, of course, the obvious thing that Alameda is going to do is they're going to sell ETH and capture the spread arbitrage between the discounted stETH and ETH, right? Which then adds a ton of sell pressure to ETH, thereby perpetuating the the death spiral, the crash in ETH. So that sell pressure didn't help. On top of that, you have all the macro factors and whatnot, which is already pushing markets down. So now the problem becomes we have like this bank run scenario where Celsius doesn't have enough ETH even to cover the deposits, right? So it's literally become a copy paste of fractionalized banking, and in the traditional world. And if everyone were to try to withdraw their ETH or withdraw their tokens, they just don't have enough to cover it. Therefore, they sent out a memo the other day, which was like kind of sent waves through crypto, saying you are not allowed to withdraw your own money, which is what everyone is so ironic because it's what everyone was afraid of in the real world, quote unquote real world, right? And it happened in crypto.
Yeah. No, it's wild. I think what people don't realize is like when you sign up for a product like Celsius, like it's in the footnotes, right? Like that you're basically giving away your rights to your assets. The crazy thing is it's like roughly $10 billion in assets, right? I think in consumer assets. That's what the number I've seen, anywhere from 5 to 10 billion, but I'm seeing more and more people say that the number is around 10. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I think the hack was Badger DAO hack. And I'm not really sure who's like running their credit desk there, but like essentially they're kind of running it like the easy explanation is it's kind of being run like a hedge fund, right? Like you're taking users' assets, you're promising some sort of yield, and you're actually clipping a much higher yield and collecting the difference. A lot of people were confused because they thought staked ETH and ETH was like this one-to-one peg. When it's not, right? So there's like a liquidity preference there. So like I was looking through the numbers. I think I sent you the numbers over the weekend. Like you can't actually go and convert your staked ETH to ETH in the Curve pool, which is like the most liquid pool. There was like 400,000 ETH in that liquid pool, and so like the price slippage would be like a few cents. I think it's really interesting how everyone's like, it's Alameda. Like it's all it seems like it's always Alameda. And really it was like a 5% arbitrage. Like it's like a 4 or 5% arbitrage opportunity right now. And so I don't know who has insight into this like OTC deal that's going on, but it's smart that they basically locked users' funds up because it was a run on the bank, like you said. So I think it's funny, the age-old saying of like, not your keys, not your crypto, right?
That's right. And I don't want to say that like Alameda is doing this or Alameda is doing this. That was the speculation on Twitter, was like there were all these tweets coming out saying this is what's happening.
100%.
I don't know that for sure, but everyone needs an antagonist to go after. So either way,
actually,
oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, it's my bad Wi-Fi. I keep cutting you off. It's like paused, but I actually believe in that like thesis, which is like, I think the like DPEGs and Terra breaking, and now Celsius, like I know there's like cascading effects, and when things start to break, like I don't think anyone really like modeled out the risk of some of the plumbing of these things, but it feels like to me like a couple of big players got together, or like didn't get together, or they necessarily just like started thinking about crypto and the fragility of it. And you're kind of like, okay, we could break this Terra peg. We could probably like cause problems with these other like stable coins, and then like Celsius is also pretty unstable. The so the inside scoop is, and multiple people have told me this, that the founders of Celsius actually sold 100 million of Celsius stock in the secondary. So
Alex
so
Mashinsky sold out on us.
yeah, so that's the thing is like, they just yeah, that's my understanding. Wait, I gotta fact check this.
Yeah.
Because if it's
Yeah.
block change, that's a big issue. But yeah, let's see. Oh, okay, huge clarification. And basically there was 100 million in the secondary for block change.
Okay.
Yeah, that's intense. So they converted it to preferential for the buyers. And it was a long time ago, back in the day, block change raised at a multi-billion-dollar valuation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't Celsius.
That's crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just insane how all these things are coming out. Like Kwon's, I don't know if this is true or not. He's refuted it on Twitter, but him selling, millions of dollars a month in Luna or whatever or Terra, I don't know, Luna, UST, whatever, as right before the crash and all that.
Yeah.
Man, it's wild.
So I heard a rumor, and I sent it to like a group chat on Telegram of friends and traders when it was all going down. Someone I knew supposedly had dinner with him or something, and claimed that he had closed out a significant percentage of his Luna holdings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, dirty rumor is like Doe cashed out significantly, and someone refuted it in the Telegram chat. And yeah, now we're hearing, he cashed out a significant percentage of money, but I don't know where is he. I've heard he's like cooped up in Singapore, just like hanging out. Like, I mean, the guy's gonna probably go to jail.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happening with all that. I can't keep up with all this stuff. There's just too much to try to keep up with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a crazy story, but crypto never surprises me.
I mean, I think I told you I played poker with Doe, right?
No.
Like once. I haven't told you the Doe. Okay. So
was he good?
No.
Did you win?
Yeah, I won. So the night before he got subpoenaed, so it was the night before Mazzari mainnet. I think that was in like, what was that, November? Yeah, I think it was in like November. Mazzari mainnet. He was supposed to speak the next day, and we were playing poker. And super nice guy, very approachable. Like people would like. It was a small group of us playing poker, maybe 5 or 6 of us. I was like a 2 Sigma guy. My friend who sold a crypto company, stablecoin project, knew Doe. Doe, a couple of other kind of crypto folks, some guy that made a ton of money off of Ether rocks. Like the guy was sitting at the other side of the table. It was actually like a really great, really, really fun night. But the guy sitting across the table is the funniest guy. And he's like, he made a few $1 million on like Ether rocks. And it's just like really hard when you sit at the table and like you work super hard to like make money. And there's like this guy just hilarious, just like cracking jokes the whole night. And I know he's worth like a good chunk of change, and he's selling, JPEGs of rocks. but yeah, we were playing poker all night. It was a long night. Played for like probably 2-3 hours, maybe longer. I don't know. But I pretty early on got like pushed in, like Doe kind of shoved the pot, and I was like, he was like all in, and I was like, okay, like call, and I like called his all in hand, um, and he didn't really have anything. I had a pair. I beat him with a pair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything, and he bought back in, and we played again, and it kind of it's like 12:30 a.m. at this point in time, and I started out terribly. I like went in $1,000 buy-in, like lost everything on the second hand because like I have no idea. I just like the guy next to me was like pushing the pot a lot and like kind of bullying people, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna call this guy.
Yeah.
And he had a great hand, and I ended up like losing everything second hand, buying back in. So I kind of like started making some money back, and I was up, and the night's kind of winding down a little bit, and Doe and I go into this hand, and everyone kind of folds, and I have nothing, and I'm like, okay, like, I called this guy once, like I've kind of been seeing his style, like he seems to like bluff a lot, and I don't have anything. I have a pair, um, and on the flop, I end up getting three of a kind, and he's like, he calls me again. He's like all in, and I call, and I don't even have that many chips. He's like a way bigger bag than me at this point in time, but yeah, I called his bluff twice, and he kind of just like smiled really big, and he was like, nice hand. And then he ended up like leaving, and I cashed out. And at that point in time, I like in my head, I was like, damn, is Tara a stack of cards? Like, is this like, I was like, this guy just bluffed twice. Like, I don't know if like Tara's legitimate here. I remember thinking that it was so funny. But he was super nice. Went up, talked to the guy. Like people approached him and were kind of like, hey, how can I stay in touch? He's like, oh yeah, just add me on Telegram. And he was like giving out people's telegrams and his telegram and stuff to me. I ended up like messaging him for like an intro once, and he got back to me. But yeah, the next day he got subpoenaed, and I just remember eating lunch when we all found out he got subpoenaed, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. I was playing poker with that guy last night. Like,
Oh man,
yeah,
that's a great story.
I know. Called his bluff twice, and then I remember when everything kind of hit the fan. I was like, damn,
I was right.
like I was right.
I was right. You were vindicated. You should have put a short on at that moment. When you called his bluff twice, I'm sure Luna was trading up around $100 at that time or something.
Yeah,
That's
It
when
was like
you should have gone like 50x leverage short on Luna at that point.
I should have just taken the poker winnings that night and put it into the short position. Yeah. Just rolled it. I ended up cashing out. Apparently, he bought back in, and it was like a $50,000 buy-in at the end of the night when I left.
Yeah,
but I'm a small fish, so I'm glad I cashed out. But yeah, I remember being pretty pumped on that night. That was the best game of poker. I've some of the best poker I've ever played. I'm not very good at poker.
Yeah, I'm not very good at poker either.
It's really fun. But FTX Bahamas, the last conference, there was a high roller table, and I've heard some pretty crazy stories about those guys at FTX playing some very serious hands against each other, and walking away with a lot of money and just doing it for fun. But yeah, I mean,
I heard Sam T. Jabuko is pretty good at poker.
That's what I heard. Yeah. That's what I heard. I mean, that's what all the Kwon shops do, right? In Chicago. Like, they just kind of stay and play poker late night. Yep. Actually what I was doing. I played poker at DYDX in San Francisco. They had a fun poker night. They just moved to New York, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, man, I was talking about token design with someone today. It does not matter what you do right now for your token or what your token design does. It's all going it's all trading at with a correlation of 1 and all going down. It's like but because DYDX is getting hammered right now.
Yeah.
I know it's taking a little bit of a beating.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. Man, I don't know why anyone would be trading right now, unless you're like a professional and you actually know how to do this. Like if you're retail, you should probably just quit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As funny as it is, I sold my first NFT today.
What NFT?
That's bad. That's bad news.
That's bad news.
If I'm making money flipping NFTs, the market still needs to go lower.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, the first NFT that I bought was an SMB.
Those are
popular. They are popular. And I mean I bought it for like 2 or something like that, 2 Solana at the time. And
nice trade.
Yeah, well, it like jumped up. The problem is I sold too early. It jumped up to like 100. I sold it in 48 hours for 100 Solana, which at the time Solana was trading around $200 or whatever. So yeah, that was a nice trade. But and then I was like, oh man, I like timed that perfect. I like hit the top because they crashed for a while. But then after that, it went past 100, and of course, I felt like I missed out. But that being said, you can't really beat two Solana to 100 in 48 hours. So
disappointing. Yeah, so decent returns for 48 hours. Yeah. I don't understand how to like value NFTs. So like for me, it's like I'm not going to try to trade it. There's a couple like that's actually kind of something I'm trying to figure out. Like I think the bear market provides a lot of clarity for builders, for investors, just people like kind of in the crypto space. And I've been trying to understand like how many actual users there are like using DeFi projects or protocols. I think the number is actually like a lot smaller than people think.
I think that going back to the Celsius thing, I think that Celsius was a large part of TVL across all DeFi, right?
Yeah. I mean, 10 like what they think they had $10 billion or something of assets in there. I feel like that's high. I know that Celsius raised at like a very big round too. It actually was somewhere around 10 billion. And so they had $400 million in cash raised in that last round, which is significant money, right? So to be insolvent potentially after raising 400 mil, like things are not going well. Whoever's running that credit desk is definitely not staying around. But yeah, no, like it's Solana. I was like trying to figure out if this like data is available, but there's like 350 daily active users on like one of the more popular DeFi protocols on Solana. And so yeah, it just kind of shows like obviously this space is very nascent still and in its infancy. So I mean, you have these large wallets that are moving big dollar amounts, but like, I mean, if we're gonna scale this thing, like that's why I actually enjoy being in this space right now, even though things are pulling back significantly. You get clarity on like where real innovation is, where real teams building are.
It clears out the noise. And actually, I was listening to some analysts the other day talk about how a lot of unicorns actually get started during bear markets or right after bear markets. So so I think that you're right. It clears out the noise. It crystallizes who's, like you said, who's actually building, who's actually innovating, which turns out, they're probably a useful company that's going to succeed if they can weather this. And then all of a sudden, once the bear market kind of turns and we start ramping back up, those companies ride that wave back up, right?
Yeah. Do you think that like with the Terror debacle, with Celsius, like people, I mean, what happens? Like regulators have to step in and kind of be like,
I do think that at this point regulation has to happen, and this is like what every crypto naysayer has probably been asking for, right? Now they can point to all this stuff and say, we need to step in. I was talking with someone who's been, an option trader and in the market since the probably the 90s or 80s or something. I don't know. He's a little older. And he was saying how, I can't remember how he put it, but he basically said like, this is what was happening, in the 80s as well. And this is where regulators started stepping in into the 90s, saying, a lot of this stuff has to be regulated. It can't be, you have to be an institutional investor to get into it.
Yeah.
So like a lot of that started getting handed down then, and this is kind of like a replay of that. And then on top of that, we have kind of like this, he was saying the Lehman-esque moment with Celsius, which is probably going to, exacerbate the cry for regulation, or amplify it, I guess. So yeah, we'll see how it all goes, see where we end up. I know another guy who's been talking about this. I guess he is friends with someone who is the UK in the UK's version of the SEC or something like that. I forgot what the three letters are that they use, but he was saying that his friend was telling him that regulation is coming down hard in the UK, and crypto will not look the same in a year or two. It will be a completely, vastly different landscape. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just along for the ride at this point and just trying to be smart.
Yeah. I had the same thing. One of the partners at my old fund was like incredible derivatives trader, like built a desk in Japan actually. And he was super excited when we started getting into crypto because he was like, oh man, it just feels like the 80s again. He was like, before, the regulator stepped in and screwed it all up. And so, yeah, it is kind of interesting that you picked that timeline, because something that Druckenmiller said in the Soma video from the weekend was he feels like we're entering a period that's very similar to the 80s, right? You had oil prices going up, the dollar going up, and inflation. So who knows? Hopefully, hopefully we still have he was kind of, his base case was like a recession in the next 12 months. So
yeah.
We'll see, but
so here's the thing, and this going back to like the conversation I had with the trader this morning, he said a similar thing, and it's kind of in my view as well, that we will probably see recession, this year or next year, but recessions typically don't last long because they can't, because recessions lead to Jacobin meetings, and French revolutions and heads rolling in the streets, right? I mean, that is quite literally what long recessions lead to. They lead to riots and division, and they lead to politicians not being elected again. And so it leads to war. Recessions lead to depressions, which lead to war, real war. And people, you can't have that. It's not a good political look, right? So they can't. The Fed and the government are in this hard, between a rock and a hard place, in that they need to get inflation expectation under control, because inflation leads to, recessions. And, once people feel it hit their pocketbooks, they revolt eventually. And you can't have that. But at the same time, you can't stop injecting money into the system at this point, because the levels of debt in the system have become untenable. So they don't know what to do. They're riding this knife edge at this point. That's why it's my view that eventually they're going to have to choose to save the economy in some way. And in fact, like the tweet came out, I don't remember who tweeted, but it was like the Biden administration put out a headline like, now they're closely monitoring the stock market, because I think the S&P is down 22% today or something like that. So we're officially in a bear market, and they're closely monitoring the stock market. And someone made the joke, it's like, oh, Biden handlers finally told them there's something called the stock market, and people tend to care about it, especially because in America, you associate, or people now associate, the market with the economy, which it should technically be two separate things, but it is, this indicator. So anyway, it's funny. And now everyone I talk to now, like, friends of friends, just at parties or whatever, if they hear I'm like working the markets or, do whatever, they'll start mentioning things, and these are people who are, you know, diehard. Some of them are, you know, pretty diehard Democrats, and they're just like, oh, I can't believe I voted for this guy. You know, I can't believe, like, you know, I just to clarify, I'm neither, but Republican nor Democrat. But you know, I'll say, like, for one, it's not just the Biden administration's fault. It's not just Biden's fault that, you know, inflation is going through the roof. But it's so funny that people look to Biden or Trump or whoever as like a savior character, like this one person can save us from, you know, and really it's just like, I don't know, there's all these factors. It's such a complex system, you know, global markets. So yeah, one little turn of the gear over here can change, you know, like this, like some like thing that's completely seemingly disconnected from, you know, the first parts, like the butterfly wing thing. And I actually remember reading what was it? It was Market Wizards, the first Market Wizards. And I remember one of the, I can't remember who it was, but he was saying how he loved macro for that reason, and that, like, you know, palm oil in Thailand goes up and all of a sudden prices of, you know, steel are moving in a weird way, and somehow it's connected. So like and that's why I like macro too, is there's like this huge puzzle that you can try to figure out. And one of the reasons that I was like, on kind of a separate note, like the puzzle is fun to try to figure out, but I really love markets and macro because it's it doesn't lie. It will always tell you if you're right or wrong in hindsight, right? Everyone, you know, two economists can look at the same problem and see two separate things and two separate solutions, but in the end, one of them will be right and one of them will be wrong. And the way that you measure that is, did you make money or did you lose money? Right. You might actually be right theoretically, but if you lost money, you were wrong. And I love that about markets. There's really not a whole lot of room for emotion in markets. So, tangent.
No, it's kind of funny because people are like, economists aren't traders for a reason. Like a lot of economists couldn't actually be good traders. Macro is really cool for sure. I think like you're seeing things start to break a little bit here. And
talk about spreads.
Well, so spread, like credit default swaps, like spreads are widening pretty significantly. I think what was most interesting to me, because I started my career in like structured credit, so like CMBS, RMBS. On Friday, the 2-year went up like 30 basis points in like less than 24 hours, so it went from like 175 to like 205 or something like that, which is like which is just like insane. And so you're getting like people who are worried about like yield curve inversion, which is telling of like, you know, of a recession. But to me, like everyone's like paying a lot of attention to Japan and kind of like what Japan's been doing. So I agree. Like I think it's super fascinating to try to understand. What's interesting is like crypto, like where does it sit kind of in the stack, like in the macro stack, and it's still like this, you know, longer tailed risk asset that just kind of like gets sectored into like the Nasdaq, or like grouped in with the Nasdaq. It's like a similar investor base, high growth tech investors investing in crypto. So trying to like look down the line and figure out what's coming. The successful investors in crypto that I knew that are mostly in cash now, it was like a very easy kind of like, okay, inflation's going to get out of control and like the Fed's going to have to raise rates here. And so like, you know, risk assets are going to sell off. Well, like crypto is going to get absolutely hammered. And that's why I think like someone smart came in, and, you know, you had these groups of people that were shorting a number of these altcoins significantly, but I think like, you know, Terra depegging or USD depegging and kind of some of the market dysfunction we've seen is like greatly probably due to, you know, some big players stepping into the space and actually like forcing the market a little bit. So Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I agree. Let me, I should clarify that I'm not a macro expert by any means. I just like studying it. I
Me
just want
either.
to like just throw that out
Yeah.
there. Don't listen to anything I say. I'm just rambling.
Yeah. Not financial advice.
Not financial advice, exactly. Yeah, so I think that like Japan is a really interesting case. And there's this documentary on YouTube called Princes of the Yen. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. It's
You have the best book. You read the best books and like articles, and the titles are always really cool. I like don't have enough time for like reading these cool books. I need to
yeah.
step it up.
I don't know. I at one point I was reading about a book a week. I get like really obsessive about stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I did that. And now I have a daughter, so now I try to read like a book a month, but anyway, and it's funny you mentioned that because I was telling Tommy about another book that I read this when we were at coffee on this last weekend, or when we had coffee this last weekend. It's called Creature from Jekyll Island, which is also kind of a cool title, right?
It's a really cool title.
Yeah, I know. When you said cool title, I was like, oh, I know another one. So that book is about how the Federal Reserve was formed, and the author is kind of like this crazy. He's kind of a crazy person. He's had some like off the wall books and stuff. So like
I
I
like
don't
that.
know. Yeah, I mean, he's a little out there. He's a little out there, but the story that he tells, at least the first part of the book, because full disclosure, I didn't read the whole book. I read like half of it. I got what I wanted out of it. So the first half of the book is basically about how the Federal Reserve is formed, and the story is corroborated on the Federal Reserve's website. So I went and like checked it out to make sure he was telling the truth.
That's cool.
And a lot of what he said was true, and that's also like a fascinating story about how it was formed. There's a couple powerful families. They all met in secret. They wore disguises. They rode this train down to this island that one of them owned.
Seriously?
Yeah, like a Congress person owned.
That's
and
crazy.
They had a meeting there on this island called Jekyll Island, and they formed the Federal Reserve, or at least the idea was formed to create the Federal Reserve, which is a centralized bank. Because before that, the states, it was, I don't remember if it's called wildcat banking or before, I don't remember, but at one point in our history, states could issue their own money.
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of George Selgin's work, I don't know if it's Selgin or Selgin, I don't know. George Selgin's work, he's at the Cato Institute. He's probably like one of the foremost thought experts on money and whatnot. And I've read, one of his books is called Money Free and Unfree. He talks about how that was actually working, especially I think it was 16th century Scotland. They had this free banking system where people could issue their own money. And it's kind of like a decentralized banking system where banks keep themselves in line. They keep like this equilibrium of sorts, because if one bank issues too much money, they dilute the value of their currency. So people will start using the other bank's currency. And so it keeps this balance. Whereas if there's one central entity, you don't have that choice, and they can manipulate the money supply at will. And so in Selgin's book, he argues that centralized banking is a destabilizing entity, not a stabilizing one. And then you go and read, Creature from Jekyll Island, and you learn about how the Fed was formed and just how they like dug their claws into the government and how manipulative and weird it was and how it all came about. And the families that were involved were like incredibly sketchy. I think one, if I remember right, was like a German family who had started a German central bank at one point, which had basically bankrupted the country already. And then they had come over and created ours. And so like the history of the Federal Reserve is actually very fascinating. They're neither federal nor are they a reserve. And now they're, I don't know. It's wild. So fun facts.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it's ludicrous to think that like a handful of individuals should decide like.
We're going to get shut down off YouTube for talking about this.
Yeah.
There's like a knock on my door right now. Oh my gosh.
Jerome Powell.
I just disappear. Man. Yeah.
I thought it was really funny what you said earlier, because you were like, Biden's finally paying attention to the stock market. Did you see his plan? His like 3 bullet point plan on how to like fight inflation. And like the second bullet point literally just says lower the cost of goods, like that families purchase. And everyone was like, how is this like a plan of action? Like, how do you just like lower the costs?
You just do it, Spencer. What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
You don't know how to do that, you idiot. You
No.
just lowered the costs. Do you watch The Office by any chance?
Yeah.
A little bit. There's like this one point where Michael Scott's trying to save the company, save Dunder Mifflin or whatever. And I should try to find that clip, but he's like,
is this the one where they're like all at the like demo day style, like
yes,
conference almost?
Yes.
Dude, so good. He like fist pumps.
Yes.
It's a 45-day, 45 point, 1 point per day. We get to 45 points. We are back in business. And you can take that to the bank.
Yep.
Yeah. Someone said in the chat that I was in on with these traders today. They were like, Biden or Trump would have been personally calling Powell sell like every day for the last like 3 months. And then they quoted this, they showed this Trump tweet that was like, the market's at all-time highs. How are your 401ks doing? And I was like, this is absurd. This is crazy. It's awesome. But yeah, just polar opposites.
Yeah. I do miss the Trump Twitter era. It was hilarious.
Yeah. I think Elon's gonna bring it back.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I mean, whether you disagree or not, like if you can't see the humor in what he's saying and just how absurd everything was, I mean, it was just funny, right?
Yeah.
Some of it was a little inappropriate, I'll admit, but stuff like that, like talking about people's 401ks as the president.
Yeah, that's absurd. Yeah. How are your 401ks? Are they up? No, it was like, are they up, 5x? If not, what are you doing wrong? Like he like literally was like giving out financial advice on his Twitter. He's like, why are you guys losers? Like I'm pumping the economy. Like this like stock market's ripping. And you guys aren't at all-time highs. It's really good. It's really good. And then
total bro.
That era was wild. And I hope Elon Musk brings it back, but I don't think that deal's gonna go through.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Seems like he's trying to pull out of it now.
Yeah, but the cool thing we talked about was the person who's leading the leverage buyout, who's like providing like a significant portion of the capital, is this like ultra secret venture fund. And I recognized the name, and I actually had lunch with the guy who runs the firm, and he keeps it super low key. And I remember we're getting lunch with him, and he's like, oh yeah, like I raised another, $1.2 billion or whatever for the fund. And the guy that I was with was like, what? Like, why didn't you tell us? Like, we would have invested. And like the guy's able to raise money like secretly like that, which is just wild. And he's a cybersecurity specialist. Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to like dox him. I feel like I'm doxing him if I give out this information. But the Wall Street Journal did like a cool article on like the firm, and he's like, the article basically goes over the firm and how like it's one of the largest investors in SpaceX and Boring Company, but nobody's actually ever heard of it. And when you click on the web page, it's like single page that just says like the name of the venture fund, and that's it. Kind of reminds me of Placeholders. Have you been to Placeholders website where it just says like placeholder?
Yeah.
But
yes, exactly. It's
pretty cool.
So it's interesting that there are people out there like this. I have one story and then let's end it because we're already at an hour.
For sure.
And then because I feel like you and I could just keep going on this. So let's save it. We have a lot.
We could cut hopefully some of that too, where like I have a bad connection, and then also I butchered probably for 2 or 3 minutes the Celsius rumor. We almost
no. That was good. Okay, so
fact check.
Yeah, exactly. Just fact check us. We don't care.
Yes.
I met a guy once. He was a friend of a friend. I think. Yes. So anyway, I met this guy. But he was just really interesting, right? He didn't wear shoes. He didn't have a cell phone. And my friend told me, my friend's this fund manager. He was like, you have to meet this guy. Yeah. He is so interesting. He runs a fund, his own fund. And the people in this fund are like, I won't say their names, but like princes, and dignitary, like leaders of countries kind of thing.
Yeah.
and he's like, the guy lives, the fund manager, who's a friend of my friend, he lives on 4 continents a year. He lives like 3 months in America, 3 months in Africa, 3 months in Europe, 3 months in Asia.
Yeah.
And he, like I said, he doesn't wear shoes and he doesn't have a cell phone. So if you want to meet with him, you have to just like make a meeting through email, and then you better show up, kind of thing, because you can't get a hold of him. You can't tell him you're not going to make it. And this guy,
is wild.
And this guy, when we were in Finland for the Slush conference, he called my friend. He's like, I'm at this party right now. The Prince of Finland is here or something. I don't remember who it was, but he was just like, all these people are here. I think like Prince Harry's rolling through. He's like, you should come check it out. It's like, we're just hanging out. The other funny thing about this guy was, apparently, according to my friend, he had been on 2 Olympic teams. He had figured out how to get on 2 countries' Olympic teams. So he was on, I think, if I remember right, he was on the Ethiopian cross-country skiing team. The only one.
That's amazing.
And he actually, walked opening ceremonies for like Ethiopia or something like that. and yeah, competed in cross-country skiing for Ethiopia.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What was the investment style? Did you do like public markets or?
I didn't even ask. I don't know.
Because if you can't meet up with the guy, he doesn't have a cell phone. Like he can't be in the private market.
Yeah.
There's no way.
This was all according to a buddy of mine who's reputable source, very serious person, like would not, he doesn't make stuff up about this. And so anyway,
living though.
He's just living his life.
No phone,
no
shoes,
barely wears shoes. Yeah.
Still gets service.
Just rocks around like that. Yeah. It's incredible. Some of these people you meet. So I mean, I don't want to keep going on stories, but you and I both know someone who has the wildest stories you've ever heard. And I was telling Tommy at coffee about a couple of these stories, but we can get into that at another time.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this one up.
Story time with Justin Spencer, his next podcast.
So we should just that's what we should have named the podcast, honestly. Just story time.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's wrap this one up. All right.